Hello, book people. PT Hilton here. I want to talk to you today about audiobooks. I've been listening to quite a lot of audiobooks recently. Seems like I've been just on the go more lately, so I've had more time to listen to audiobooks in the car and while I'm traveling and stuff like that, rather than sitting down with a physical book. So I've been doing more audiobooks, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, in my experience, what a few things that can make a great audiobook. Now, I believe that almost any book can be a good audiobook. But there's a few factors that increase the likelihood of it being good. And those are a few things that I wanted to talk about today. The first element is genre. Now, again, any genre could be a good audiobook, but I think there's a few genres that really lend themselves to good audiobooks. One of those would be horror. I feel like when you're listening to an audiobook and it's scary, it's a little different than a book where you can just stop for a second and look away. When you're listening to a horror book, it's a little more effort. Yeah, of course you could pause it, but it's a little bit more effort, and it's almost like it's just washing over you, and there's something scary. It's kind of like that thing of almost like sitting around a campfire hearing a scary story being told. I think horror really works well. Another one is thrillers. I think really exciting books are great in audio. I've had a couple experiences where I just I get to where I'm going in my car and I'm listening to an audiobook, and then I just park the car and sit there for 5 more minutes because I'm in the middle of a great thriller and I just do not want to stop. I want to keep going and hear what's going on. Third genre that I think can work really well as an audiobook. I'm going to do kind of 2 in 1 here. This would be kind of classics or kind of denser literary type fiction. Now, it seems like that maybe would not be a good audiobook, but here's my rationale and why it's worked for me. A lot of times when I'm going to pick up a paper book to read, and I maybe pick up a classic or a denser literary fiction type book, and I start reading it, and it takes me a little while to get into it, and I'm just as likely to stop and put it down as I am to continue to that point where I get into it. Whereas with an audiobook, I can kind of just hit play and just sit there and let it wash over me. Eventually, I kind of just get sucked in by the language. It keeps going, whereas if I were reading the paper book, I might close it and set it aside. With the audiobook, I kind of just let it keep going until that point where I'm really just drawn in by what's going on. So that was my first point, genres. The second thing that can make a great audiobook, of course, is narrators. And there are so many great narrators out there, but I want to give a shout out to a couple of my favorites. The first one is Bronson Pinchot, who I know primarily as his great role as Belky Bartakamus on the wonderful 80s, 90s sitcom Perfect Strangers, which, by the way, Perfect Strangers had the greatest sitcom theme song of all time. Go look it up. In fact, I'll put the link in the comments below so you can go watch it. Great theme song. But I heard Bronson on one of the books from the Area X trilogy. I think it was the second book, Authority. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Authority. He's such a good reader. Man, he's so good. If you ever see any book and see it's narrated by him, highly recommend. The second one is Cassandra Campbell. She narrated the book Bird Box, which kind of goes back to my first point, and that's a horror novel, and it's very, very scary. It's a story of a world where when they go outside, they have to keep their eyes closed or keep their eyes covered, or they'll go insane if they see this something that we don't know what it is. So right there, it's, of course, a great concept for an audiobook because it's all the characters experiencing things not through her eyes, but through her ears, just as we are. But the narrator in this, Cassandra Campbell, she does such a great scared little kid voice. Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful. If you're looking for a great audio horror experience, I highly recommend that. Finally, Dion Graham. He does a lot of crime fiction, and he's read quite a few George Pelecanos books that I've listened to, and that guy has just got such a great voice to listen to. He's got kind of a really deep, rich voice that works really, really well in the crime fiction stories that George Pelecanos writes. So I recommend him too. Third element that I think can really add to a audiobook is a strong narrative voice. And what I mean by that is not the narrator himself, but the narrative voice in the writing. So if it could be a great first person book like The Martian. As soon as I started reading The Martian, I was like, this would be a great audiobook because it's got such a strong personality to it. Another one is You. That is another book that's got written from such a strong perspective that it just works very, very well as an audiobook. That's one of the best audiobooks I've listened to in a long time. Another example is The Turnaround by George Pelecanos. That's by Dion Graham, narrated by Dion Graham, as I said, and he's got a wonderful voice, but also just the strong narrative voice in George Pelecanos' writing makes it work great. So those are kind of three elements that I think really help an audiobook. Is it in a genre that lends itself easily to audiobooks? Does it have a great narrator? And does it have a strong narrative voice? So I'm curious, what are the things that you look for in an audiobook? What makes a great audiobook? I'm curious what your thoughts are. That'll do it for me. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.